It's been a week since I ran the LA Marathon, and this is going to be my final video in this series. So, for those who don't know, about 3.5 weeks to the marathon, I injured myself. I pulled my groin muscle while doing some mobility exercises, and that was the end of my training. I struggled to walk for a couple of days, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do the marathon. So the week leading to the marathon, I got into LA and I decided to try a run. So I did like a 5.8 kilometer run, and it wasn't bad actually. I didn't feel the pain, but after the run later, the pain returned. And I also was having some pain in my right knee. So this trial run was on Tuesday. The marathon was going to be on Sunday. So at this point, I wasn't completely sure what to do, but I then felt, okay, I'll watch it. I wouldn't do any more runs. If Sunday comes and I don't feel pain, I'll try it out. And I would actually target doing a half marathon. And by the time I get to the half, I'll be able to decide if I can go further. That was the game plan. So by that Sunday, I actually wasn't in pain anymore. I mean, I had a lot of people praying, to be honest. And so I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that I wasn't experiencing the pain. So at some point, I realized, you actually can do this full marathon. And that changed my target. From that point on, I was counting down to the end because the way I run, I count down. If I finish one milestone, I say, okay, one done, 25 to go, two done, 24 to go. That's how I run. So I decided I would target the 26.2 miles. This was my hardest marathon. It's my fifth, but it was my hardest. I guess that's because I hadn't trained for 3.5 weeks leading to this. So I experienced certain things. My left knee is the one that actually started giving me issues at some point, and then it stopped. But I was running and my left thigh started contracting to where it was getting painful. So I stopped. As I stopped running, it felt like a cramp. And so I was walking and wondering what was going to happen. But what I observed was as I walked, the cramp eased off to where it left completely. So what I ended up doing was walking a lot more than I normally would. And if I start running and it starts cramping, I walk it off. And so that happened on and off throughout the entire run. It was quite a slopey terrain. So at some point, I also decided I'll walk up and run down. So those were the tactics I was using to survive. By the time I was about 2 miles, 2.5 miles to the end, that's when my groin muscle started to hurt. So at this point, I'd run a bit, I'd walk, I'd run a bit, I'd walk. And I was so determined to run across the finish line at the very least. But guess what happened? I was about 100, 200 meters from the finish line. I mean, I'm seeing the finish line in front of me. That my left thigh cramped so badly. It was horrible. I just stopped and then I started hobbling. In fact, I don't know how I walked because the pain was severe, but I managed to then walk across the finish line.
You're just lucky I didn't bring out the really bad dad jokes. Maybe I'll bring them out next year. We'll see. We'll see. I love the jokes. I love it all. That's what this is all about. It's a party. Am I right? Is this a party? Yeah, it's a party. In the house. There we go.
So did I finish? Yes. Definitely not at the time I'd hoped to finish, but I'm so glad that I did it. Will I do another one? The jury is still out. I've said I won't, but these things, you never say never, right? But I'm glad I was able to persevere. I'm glad that despite the obstacles, I still pushed through and I ticked off a bucket list item to run an international marathon. So, what do I take away from this entire experience? I guess it would be that when you've made up in your mind that there's something you're going to achieve, there's something you're going to do for whatever reason, obstacles are likely to come up. There are going to be many things to discourage you, you know, from doing that thing. But if it's something that you're sure you need to do or you want to do, you're able to push past the obstacles. So if there's something that you know that the Lord has placed in your heart to do for the kingdom, to do for Him, there might be obstacles. In fact, there likely will be. But I just want to encourage you that you can push past them. With something that you're doing by faith on what the Lord has said, you have even more impetus, even more courage to push past the obstacles because you know that if God has said it, then you're able to do it. So be encouraged. Hold fast to whatever God has said and go for it.